Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Impossible Stars by Richard C. Myers, Chuck Dixon, and Renzo Rodriguez. So let's go over the obvious. This cover is awful. It's the definition of awful. Of all of the covers that I have seen in crowdfunded comics, this is by far the worst. I'm not really sure what Zach was thinking, other than maybe I should save money by not making Renzo draw the cover. But hopefully, here's the feedback, Zach. Just pay an artist to draw the cover. This is stupid, and if you actually end up going on an epic with this particular story or run, you're going to greatly regret this garbage tier cover you came up with. Now that I've gotten that negative out of the way, that is the worst part about this book, because the rest of Impossible Stars is very good. I know that sounds kind of amazing to say about a Richard C. Myers book in 2021, because let's be honest, Richard has not been on a very good hot streak. Last year with Pandemic, which was, you can see the review on my channel and many people's channel, easily his worst book by like a wide margin. One of the worst books in general I've ever read. Probably worse than a lot of SJW Marvel DC books, for that matter. And then followed up by The Ballad of No, another very aggressively mediocre book. I wouldn't say necessarily horrible, but not great or good for that matter. And then I did not back 499, but I have seen many reviews of it, and very few of them are positive. So we'll leave it at that. Nothing against Narwhal, just I really have not seen a lot that was great about 499, but I can say with no problem that Impossible Stars is excellent. It is very good. This is a story by Richard C. Myers and Chuck Dixon, script by Chuck Dixon. By the way, that might have a lot to do with why it's excellent, but you know, I think, to be fair to Richard, I think a lot of the story and the concept still ultimately is his, but the execution is probably mostly Chuck Dixon. Art by Renzo Rodriguez. This is his second book with Splato Comics. First one being Pandemic, which, by the way, his art in Pandemic is basically the best part of Pandemic. The rest of it is an enormous waste of $15. Colors by Michael G. Looks like Richard wants Michael G. and Renzo teamed up. Lettering by a new person. This is Carlos M. Mangual, not Eric Weathers this time. Edited by Richard C. Myers. Interesting. So, or Meyer, I should say. So Richard is your boy Zach. Looks like he's getting into the editing business. So we open up this book, and believe it or not, the opening is the weakest part, which, to be fair, is interesting, because normally Richard's books are usually pretty good on the opening. He usually has a good flash or flare right here. And I think the weakest part about this book is, in the first couple pages, it's very confusing what exactly the setting is other than space, right? You really don't know what time you're in or anything else. You really have to rely on like backstories and Zach's like imagination, right? And I think that's something that's going to hurt this book in the long run in terms of shelf longevity, is that most readers that aren't into Zach's channel or into Comicsgate or into crowdfunded comics, etc., right, YouTube sphere, they're going to find the opening of this book a little rough, because it just kind of throws you in the deep end, which is a Richard Meyer kind of thing. He almost always does this for literally all of his books. If you're asking Richard Meyer for exposition, his answer will always be no. He is not going to do it. Literally ever. He's a very stubborn guy like that. But luckily, the ultimate plot of this book, when it gets going, is still pretty good. So you have a scene right here of this ship basically going into chaos right here, where they're losing control, and you get back to mission control, and you know, they go over the ship crashing 2 years later, etc. There's a lot of time jumping going around, which is the other weakness of the opening. If you can get over the time jumping and you can kind of just plow through the first couple of pages, this book catches on fire, and it never lets go of your attention. You just have to get past the first 3 pages. which is really unfortunate because it's a good thing this is a crowdfunded comic, because man, if this was a comic on the book on the store shelves, I don't know how well it would do. But luckily it's a crowdfunded comic, so most of the people that pick this up are actually going to read the whole thing through. So 5 years later, you get this scene, and the premise of the book is essentially, after discovering how to go faster than light travel, humanity ends up basically attracting the attention of an alien race that basically does not want them to leave their solar system, and sends them a big freaking nuclear beam that knocks out a massive area of the eastern coast of the United States. And we get a flashback to this guy who was from the beginning, and now he's visiting his daughter, and his daughter's like in a medical stasis right here. And his daughter's asking him, why didn't you go to space? And he's like, I'm here, I'm right here where I want to be, right? And this is important because this is explaining his motivations for what happens next. So what happens next is we jump to this guy, and essentially he convinces his crew, like, here, well, you know, fuck these aliens. We're going to go out there and, you know, reach for the stars anyway, right? It doesn't matter what these aliens are trying to tell us. We're going out there to discover the stars, right? And you know, this is a typical Richard Meyer book. He doesn't really have heroes in most of his books. He tends to like to have very dirty, you know, almost shitbag-like characters, which at this point, that's just his thing. He doesn't really like to have, you know, aspirational characters. So if you're opening or buying a book from him, I don't know what to say. He doesn't like it. You know, don't buy his books if that's the case. He's pretty much put the Kelly Sue DeConnick, right? Richard C. Myers has basically put the Kelly Sue DeConnick gauntlet down. He wants to write shitbag characters. So if you don't like shitbag characters, don't buy this book. So this guy basically has an aspirational motivation, but then kind of ruins it by basically murdering his technician here, by basically sending her out the chute right here. And what follows essentially is them breaking out of the station and murdering more people on their way out. And then we jump to this character who is Aaron James Cruz. By the way, that was Tyrus Blake is the name of this character, by the way. Honestly, the names almost have no meaning. I mean, I was kind of thinking about it like, do they really have meaning? Are these characters going to be reoccurring? Because I don't even know. It's almost like this is, believe it or not, even though it doesn't seem like it for those of you who read it, this actually is effectively a one-shot. So we go to Aaron James Cruz, who is one of the pilots in the second page right here, who you know, survived this early crash where mankind was trying to figure out how to go into light speed. And he basically sent, after a pretty fun scene of him forgetting this chick that he just fucked, gets assigned by the general to go chase after Tyrus Blake and stop him from basically destroying all of humanity from their alien overlords. So you get some dialogue back and forth, and essentially what begins is a heist, basically a chase. What the book effectively is a long-running chase scene. Ironically, kind of like The Last Jedi, but executed like a million times better by Chuck Dixon. So we get a long chase scene between Tyrus Blake's spacecraft, which is the Shinatobe, and Aaron James Cruz's spacecraft, which is following him, pursuing him in tow, the Hurricane, which, by the way, they provide all this stuff for. By the way, I don't understand what this means. Like, again, this kind of stuff means a lot when you build the world up, but because of the way Richard Meyer and Chuck Dixon go about doing this, the world isn't really that built up. You kind of still have a lot of terminology and other stuff just thrown around, and you just have to accept it, right? So, this kind of stuff, I think in Richard Meyer's mind, the world is built up very well, but is what I'll say. This book, though, is still excellent, is what, just being honest, I'm giving criticism here and pokes at your boy Zach, but don't get it twisted. This is a very good book and is up there with Jawbreaker's Lost Souls as far as Richard Meyer's best works right here. well, obviously written by Chuck Dixon, so a Richard Meyer's idea story, right? So you get a high-speed chase, and it's very good dialogue by Chuck Dixon and very good plotting in terms of like the different types of situations that they run into and the basic tango between Tyrus and the chess match, right, between Tyrus and Aaron as they command their ships chasing after each other. What ends up happening at the end is through some trickery, Aaron is able to catch up and board the Shinatobi, and then he's able to basically kill everybody on the Shinatobi. And then he commandeers the ship, and the big twist of Impossible Stars is rather than bring the ship around to save humanity and not anger our alien overlords, he instead decides to kick it into light speed and go into the stars and meet the whatever fate humanity might have for them right there with the aliens coming in here. So this kind of like, I guess, ties back to the Destruction Wave short story from Jawbreaker's God King, which, by the way, like made like little to no sense when I was like looking at that book. And at the end, you get some sketches from Renzo Rodriguez. So what did I like about it? This book, first off, Renzo Rodriguez, excellent art. I've like kind of figured out something about Renzo. His art, I've been thinking about it for a while, like what does his art remind me of? And Renzo Rodriguez's art, and I know this sounds weird, his art reminds me of the Archer cartoon. I don't know if you guys have seen Archer on FX. Some of you guys have, some of you guys haven't. His art, if you pay attention closely to it, it reminds me so much of Archer, but with like more detail, right? And more gestures and other stuff. He's very good at just drawing figures and facial expressions. And the book takes advantage of that because the panel layout is mostly figures and facial expressions, which is good in terms of the dialogue and I guess getting into the character interactions, which Chuck Dixon does a very good job of in the dialogue. I think the weakness of this book is also, unfortunately, the use of just heavy panels with just people talking to each other, right? This is like a space chase and a fantasy. And there is significantly more panels of just people talking and yelling at each other, interacting with each other, than the actual spacecrafts and asteroids and things flying around and stuff, right? So interesting choice of, I guess, layouts and panel selections and shot selections by, I'm not sure if, because I think Chuck Dixon works in a full script, so this is Chuck Dixon writing it, right? So it ends up giving this book more of a cinematic movie, maybe cartoon feel, rather than, a comic book feel. I think a comic book, to me, I think it would have been better served by having more shots of the spaceship flying with speed lines or interesting effects or interesting angles and stuff. It's just mainly people like talking to each other, right? Which isn't necessarily bad because the art by Renzo Rodriguez is still excellent. It's just, it's not it. This is a book where the writing and the dialogue and the plot actually really drive it forward and do much more of a job getting you into it than the actual art. And it's not because the art isn't competent, it's excellent. It's because the art is, the layouts and the panel choices don't really breed excitement in terms of what they're trying to show you in the shots. It would be an excellent Netflix pitch, I'll tell you that much, because it's mostly shots of people talking to each other. So in terms of like CGI budget, it's like minimal for a sci-fi flick, right? Other things about it, because of that, there's a part of me that actually thinks this story and this book would actually be better as prose, as a novel, rather than a comic book. There's a lot of it where it's just people interacting with each other. And the beauty of a prose or a novel is he would have had more time to expand upon the world and explain how things work or why things are the way they are. Like for me, I don't need a lot of world building, but if you introduce a concept, that is important to the plot, you should explain how that concept works. At least, briefly, right? you don't have to go into a long fucking Jonathan Hickman level flowchart to explain it, but you know, what does this concept mean, right? There's a lot of, if you read this book, there's a lot of, you know, words thrown around that you just, like, it's not really explained within the context of the books. You can go look it up on like other things, right? But you know, to assume that the reader is just going to take it and not either, you know, be annoyed or be kind of frustrated by that, I don't know. I don't like that approach to storytelling. But that's just me personally. If you like that, then this book is even more so for you, right? What are other things about this book? It's really quick paced. It's a lot of stuff going on in this book, but it moves at such a good pace, which I think Richard's always had a very nice tempo. I like the speed that he works at. I just don't like his refusal to explain anything that's going on in the speed that he's going. And I think it's an exciting plot. It's really a lot of fun, and the twist at the end, you know, hopefully you weren't too much spoiled right there, is very, very good. It's excellent, excellent plot, excellent execution by Chuck Dixon. Interesting, I would say, not really the best layout or shot selection, I should say, for the panels. And you know, the art by Renzo Rodriguez is very good. I think I would have just liked a little more space stuff, right? There wasn't a whole lot of shots of spacecraft doing really cool things. It was mainly people talking to each other, right? But overall, I actually would recommend Impossible Stars. It's a good book. I would say, you know, if you're not fond of Richard Meyer's way of doing things, then this isn't a major improvement. I think the improvement here is the dialogue and the plot are really good. But in terms of the style of storytelling, you know, if you didn't like his storytelling in Jawbreakers Lost Souls, then, you know, this isn't going to be a major improvement from that. That being said, if you did like that stuff or any of his other stuff, then by all means get this, because this was excellent. Anyhow, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Impossible Stars, leave it down below. And I will see you next time.